الحمد لله نحمده الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. So as we continue discussing the book Bulugh Al-Maram by Hadith Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani alayhi rahmatullahi ta'ala, and we're discussing Kitab al-Buyu and discussing al-Bab, al-Salam, wal-Qard, wal-Rahn. So discussing matters relating to some business transaction, and in this particular discussion we're covering matters pertaining to things regarding loans and or interest-free loans. So inshallah ta'ala today, as we end this discussion, that will conclude with the last three order hadith that is mentioned, the hadith of Ali, and also the athar that is mentioned by other of the Sahaba on this particular discussion. So we'll have the hadith read, then after the hadith is read, then we go to takhrij, then discussing matters regarding the rawi if we haven't before, and also discuss the mawdu of the hadith, and then we discuss the masail that relates to this particular hadith. Naam.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. The author mentions Hadith 726. عن علي رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, every loan which, in the meaning, every loan which leads to a benefit is usury. al-Harith ibn Abu Usamah reported it, but its chain of narrators is Saaqit. وَلَهُ shahid, and the aforementioned hadith has a weak supporting narration on the authority of Fadalah bin Ubaid radiallahu anhu, reported by al-Baihaqi. It also has another mawquf saying of a companion, narrated by Abdullah bin Salam, reported by al-Bukhari.
Naam, so that's the hadith that had been mentioned by the author Ibn Hajar in this discussion. So inshallah ta'ala, as for the hadith that were read and the athar that were read, he mentioned first Ibn Hajar and Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, yani Ali ibn Talib radiallahu anhu, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم كل قرض جر منفى فهو ربا. Then he state رواه al-Harith ibn Abi Usamah وإسناده ساقط. Then he state after وله شاهد ضعيف, that there's also another supporting hadith, but it is or author which is daif, and Fadalah ibn Ubaid in al-Baihaqi. Then he states والآخر موقوف, and there's another statement which is موقوف, and Darussalam ibn Abdullah ibn Salam and Abdullah ibn Salam in al-Bukhari. So these are what is mentioned by the author regarding this discussion. So as we state, first thing that we'll try to cover is go over the hadith by way of what have been mentioned regarding al-azu, the sources of this hadith, and second, what have been stated by the ulama regarding the hukum of these hadith wal-athar. The first of what is mentioned, the hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, where he states kull qard, that the Prophet ﷺ have mentioned regarding that every debt or loan that any benefit is taken, then it's considered to be riba. Then he mentioned, as for the source of this hadith, he states رواه al-Harith ibn Abi Usamah وإسناده Saaqit. So the source of this hadith, as mentioned by Ibn Hajar here, that this hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib, it goes back to the book that or the collection which is al-Harith ibn Abi Usamah. This particular book of hadith, that is a collection of hadith which is as mentioned, that it's a musnad. So this book of al-Harith ibn Abu Usamah is not of those books of hadith that are very popular by most, even some. So it is not a book that is well known and popular by most. So he mentioned this as being the source. So as for this particular book, which is al-Harith ibn Abu Usamah, that this is of those who have collected hadith or collected as hadith, and the book is titled Musnad al-Harith ibn, or Musnad Harith ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Usamah. So the name of this book, that it is Musnad al-Harith ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Usamah. And this book now, alhamdulillah, tabarak ta'ala, is now in print. So before, the ulama used to mention that this book of al-Harith in his Musnad that it was of those books they said mafqud, a book that was said to be lost. For many years, no one knew and could not find of this book of al-Harith. Then it mentioned that one of the ulama, that al-Azami, that a person of the ulama that was used to be involved in checking of books and publishing of books, that in one of his search, that he went to a library and he found this book, even though it was thought to be lost. So in searching for books of hadith, doing research, that he eventually found this book, and it was mentioned only this, so he found it, and it became of those books that were thought to be lost, that alhamdulillah, that it was found, But so the book is known, it is in print, and it is titled Musnad al-Harith ibn Muhammad ibn Abu Usamah. As we mentioned now, it is of those books of hadith that are in print, even though before it was thought to be of lost. The version that people used to more rely upon regarding this Musnad of al-Harith was this one, Bulugh al-Bahith and Zawahid Musnad al-Harith. So this is the one that people used to rely upon more, as it mentioned the Zawahid, that were the additional narration that was found in the book of al-Harith. So not the complete thing was available, but just a section, a portion of those additional hadith that were not found in the more renowned books. So this is the Zawaid. And this was done by al-Haythami al-Shafi'i. So Haythami al-Shafi'i, that he died 807, that he have many books that he referred to as Zawahid. So al-Haythami al-Shafi'i was known for his work regarding Zawaid. So of those Zawahid, additional hadith that he would mention was that of the work of al-Harith. So this is what was the source or reference source regarding the book of Harith, but then because the original book was thought to be lost, but eventually before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it was eventually found and now in print. And al-Harith, as we said, Musnad al-Harith ibn Muhammad ibn Abi Usamah, that of those books of hadith were not per se well known and famous, that he died, as mentioned, that he died 282. So he died 282 al-Hijri. So before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that particular hadith that he mentioned here, it is found in this book of al-Harith. So he mentioned regarding concern the number in the original text, he mentioned is hadith number 1287. 1287. We mentioned an Omar قال سمعت عليا يقول قال رسول الله عليه السلام كل خرد يجر منفعة فهو ربا. So that's concerning the hadith that is mentioned by al-Harith. That's concerning, we mentioned this, as we state, that this book, it was thought to be lost, but eventually it was found by Sheikh al-Azami, and then one of his grandchildren, that they eventually did some work on it and published the book complete. And about in 5 volumes. So as for the hadith, what is said by the hadith, they mention isnaduhu Saaqit. So Ibn Hajar, alayhi rahmatullahi ta'ala, when he mentioned the hadith, as given a hukum on the hadith, wa isnaduhu is isnad Saaqit. So that's concerned that showed a very stern weakness in the hadith. And the reason for this, the hadith of Harith, that it is mentioned that he states min tariq Sawar ibn Mus'ab and Umara Hamdani and Ali marfu'an. So that's the hadith that is mentioned with this isnad. And Sawar, so you have a discussion regarding this particular narrator, Sawar ibn Mus'ab. So regarding concerning Sawar ibn Mus'ab, that قال Ibn Madini ليس بشيء, is nothing. قال Imam Bukhari munkar hadith, his hadith is said to be munkar. So stern criticism against his hadith. قال النسائي وغيره متروك, that Nasai mentioned is matruk, is said to be matruk. قال Abu Dawud ليس بثقة, that is not someone who's ثقة. So you have that aqwal between the ulama regarding this hadith. So based upon this, that it is mentioned in the hadith Saaqit, that hadith is considered to be Saaqit. So that's concerning the first narration, which is the hadith of Ali that is mentioned here. That the next, so that's concerning the hadith of The next author that even I mentioned, that al-Musili, that he state Bab kulla qurd jarra manfa fahuwa riba qal lam yusa' fihi shay. That regarding all the hadith regarding this topic, that there's nothing with this wording or this on this matter, that all the hadith that have been mentioned upon the Prophet ﷺ, that they are not authentic, authentic, going back to the Prophet ﷺ, as mentioned by Musali. Then the second, what is mentioned, proof that he mentioned here, which is an athar, that goes back to Fadalah ibn Ubaid and Fadalah ibn Ubaid al-Ansari. So it's Fadalah ibn Ubaid al-Ansari, al-Umri, al-Awsi, that they mentioned regarding this tarjuma, that they state regarding this particular narrator, his biography, that mentioned awwal mashahid, that his first involvement in a battle was Uhud. So you have those who participate in the battle of Uhud. And I mentioned washahida ma ba'daha, and also he participated in the other battles that came after. So he participated in Uhud, being his first, and then he participated in everything else, or what came after. Also regarding that they mentioned that Sakana Damashq, that he went to settle in Damascus, Wamata biha, and also he died there. So he went to live, left al-Hijaz, and went to settle in Damascus, where he died. And during the Khilafah of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, that he was appointed as a Qadi. So during the Khilafah of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, that he was appointed as a Qadi in Damascus. And as we mentioned, that eventually he passed away there. And he died, a khilaf between the ulama, that they mentioned that he died, mata sana thalatha wa khamseen, that he died, either some mention, he died the 53rd year of the Hijrah, so 53 of the Hijrah, or qil sana sitteen, or he died the 60th year of the Hijrah. So khilaf between the ulama, but it is stated asah al-awwal, that the more correct time of death is the first, which is the 53rd year of the Hijrah. So that's concerning this Sahabi, Fadalah ibn Ubaid al-Ansari. So as for this hadith, what is mentioned, akhrajahu the hadith in the al-Baihaqi, as stated by the author, that the hadith in the al-Baihaqi. So he mentioned in the al-Baihaqi, and that's considered to be as mentioned, lahu shahid daif. So Ibn Hajar, alayhi rahmatullahi ta'ala, that is mentioned that there's a shahid, that another reference, another supporting hadith of this type, but it is daif. So kind of somewhat he mentioned that it is something which is daif. And the statement of Fadalah ibn Ubaid, annahu qal, that his statement is كل قرد جر منفى بوجه من وجوه الربا. So his actual statement, he didn't mention his statement here, but his statement kind of somewhat aligned to what had been mentioned before in the hadith, that he mentioned كل قرد, that any form of loan, جر منفى, that any benefit is taken from it, من بوجه, in any format, وجه من وجوه الربا, then it becomes الربا. So that's concerning that particular athar. And as we mentioned, that particular athar, going back to Fadalah ibn Ubaid, it is daif. Wa in the al-Baihaqi. And the discussion regarding the hadith of the mentioned daif, reason why it is daif, that in the isnad, in the al-Baihaqi, min isnad Baihaqi, Tariq Idris ibn Yahya. So of the Tariq, the isnad of al-Baihaqi, it mentioned Idris ibn Yahya and Abdullah, or an Abdullah ibn Iyash, and Abdullah ibn Iyash قال حدثني يزيد ibn Abi Habib and Abi Marzuq تجيبي and Fadalah ibn Ubaid أنه قال al-Athar. They mention regarding concern with this particular isnad, there is a narrator that they mention Abdullah ibn Iyash. So Abdullah ibn Iyash, that there's some discussion regarding this particular narrator. So the isnad muttasil, but all the rijal are said to be thiqat, with the exception of a discussion regarding Abdullah ibn Iyash. فقال فيه يعني the kalam of the ulama regarding this narrator. قال أبو عاتم ليس بمتين is not sometimes متين صدوق يكتب حديث. So ليس بمتين but is صدوق يكتب حديثه. But then it mentioned that Abu Dawud والنسائي called ضعيف. So Imam Abu Dawud والنسائي that they state regarding this particular narrator ضعيف. Then Ibn Hajar in his book At-Taqrib give like a summary of narrators in كتب الستة قال صدوق يغلط. That is one who said to be صدوق but he has errors. He has errors. So that's concerning that of the primary criticism of this isnad is this narrator, Abdullah ibn Iyash, but also added to this that they mentioned that Idris ibn Yahya. So Idris ibn Yahya wa Khawlani al-Misri. So Idris ibn Yahya al-Khawlani al-Misri قال في ابن أبي حاتم صدوق. So said to be of صدوق. And also something similar said by Abu Zurha. Then it is stated by Ibn Hibban مستقيم hadith. His hadith is مستقيم إذا كان دونه ثقة وفوقه ثقة. That if those below him is ثقة and also those above him is ثقة, so his hadith is more credible. But overall, those are what is said regarding that particular isnad. But the main kalam, the main discussion regarding that isnad, it goes back to Abdullah ibn Iyash. So that is the reason behind Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned lahu shahid daif. Shahid daif. The final, as I mentioned, wal akhir mawkuf. So mawkuf with the ulama of hadith, it means that which goes back to a sahabi. Mawkuf, it means that this statement or this act, it is something which is ascribed to a sahaba. So something which has been translated or something which is transmitted upon a sahabi, it is said to be mawkuf. So he mentioned an Darussalam, an Abdullah ibn Salam, an Abdullah ibn Salam. So that's concerning that sahabi, Abdullah ibn Salam, Ibr. So Darussalam al-Hibr, that's this particular sahabi, radiallahu anhu, قال shahida, that the Prophet ﷺ that bear witness to him being of the people of Jannah. Of those the Prophet ﷺ have stated, confirmed that is, or bear witness that is of those of the people of Jannah. And is a hadith, and he mentioned that he died, Tawaffi Sana, they mentioned 43, that he died here, the 43 year of the Hijrah, the 43 year of the Hijrah. And they mention here, Akhrajahu Bukhari, that his statement here is found in the al-Bukhari. And what he was said, that it was mentioned, Ataitu al-Madina. Falaqito, which is the mention concern that Abu Burda, قال Ataitu al-Madina, that I came to Medina, Falaqito Abdullah ibn Salam, and I met the Sahabi Abdullah ibn Salam. فقال ألا تجي فأطعمك سويك وتمر وتدخل في بيت. Should I not come and see you and visit you, and we can have some things to eat, dates and the others in your house. ثم قال إنك في أرض الربا فيه فاش, that you live in a place where riba is widespread. Then he mentioned, then he states, فإذ كان لك على رجل حق, if upon you a person of rights, you have a person of upon you rights, فأهدي إليك هم تبن أو هم شهير أو حمل قط فإنه ربا. Then he mentioned that if this person, as he stated concerning إذا كان لك على رجل حق, that if you have any rights to fulfill to a person, فأهدى إليك حمل تبن, which is like hay or grass, or ba'ir, shahir, meaning barley, or qat, فلا تأخذ, then he mentioned a shahid, فلا تأخذه فإنه riba, that you are not to take these things from this person because it is riba. So if a person owe you anything and they want to give you something additional, whether of grass, hay, or things of barley, or anything else, then they mention, do not take it because this is riba. This is riba. So that's concerning what have been mentioned regarding concerning these particular narrations. So they mentioned that the most authentic matter on this is this statement of Abdullah ibn Salam regarding not taking things if you owe someone or someone owes you a loan. So as for the masas, that's concerning the hukum of the hadith regarding the hukum. The hadith going back to Ali is da'if, Saaqit. The shahid of Fadalah bin Ubaid is da'if from the Sahaba. And what is more authentic is the statement of the Sahabi, who is Abdullah ibn Salam. So as for now the next matter, which is matter regarding the mawdu of this hadith. So I mentioned concerning the mawdu, the topic of this hadith, it discussed concerning hukum qard ila jarra manfa, regarding that a person who has a loan or taken to repay someone, but they want to give something additional, is this considered to be riba? So giving something additional to someone, you owe them a debt. So that's concerning the mawdu of this particular hadith. That's the mawdu of this particular hadith. In general, that Sheikh Bassam, when he mentioned this hadith, he mentioned that of the benefit, he states regarding that the intent and the aim and the purpose, that the purpose of interest-free loan is doing good towards others. It is something which is, as the ulama mentioned, as we stated before, and as we have mentioned, the ulama stated, is something which is allowed, and there's no aib in a person taking a loan, borrowing from others if there's a need. So to borrow from others if there's no need, then that is something which is, there's no harm in this. It is allowed in Islam. So the person is in need and wish to borrow something, or in a situation and wish to borrow, then it is something which is allowed. And also for a person to loan someone something that you believe the person will repay you. So if you believe that I'm gonna lend someone something, but you believe the person is able to repay you, then for you to give that loan, then there's no harm in this. And something which is considered to be something which is hasan. Something which is hasan. And ta'awun ala bir wa taqwa. Then they mention regarding concern to the person, that's a person doing this, the person being considerate to a person who may be in need and needs some assistance, so they will give them this loan. So it shows that this permissibility of this. So they mentioned that, and the person doing so, he do so by ihsan wa irfaq, doing out the person by being one who wants to do good, and person who's considerate towards others and trying to be helpful towards others. So it is something good. And also, with also a person, raja, thawab min Allah, and the person also, yahtasib al-ajr inda Allah, and the person also doing this, seeking the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then this is something which is hasan, is something which is good. Then they mentioned that the hadith discussed concerning that any type of ziyada, anything which is additional to what was given, then this is considered to be riba. This is considered anything additional, then it is considered to be a form of riba. But the ulama, they can somehow put this in context regarding concern to note that, and I mentioned that this is about the statement of the hadith which is daif, but the author is sahih, that they mentioned that there's no authentic hadith on this matter. But they mentioned that, of the ulama mentioned that there's ijma, and the same as the salaf regarding the permissibility, that regarding this is something which is classed or considered to be riba. Any type of manfa that was agreed upon or given in paying back the loan is considered to be riba. Or anything stipulated, then it is considered to be riba. They mentioned regarding concern this matter that you find that Muwafaq ibn Qudama قال كل قرض, that of what he had mentioned, that any form of free interest loan that was bishart, that there was a condition, a ziyada, that the person in paying back, you have to add something to this. So this was a condition of the payment. Then this is haram bila khilaf. So this is haram without any khilaf. So the person who may loan someone something, but then you stipulate that in paying back, something additional has to be given to what was given. Then this is riba. And this is haram. So that is ittifaq. But then they mentioned regarding that, so that's concerning ittifaq, that is haram. But then the ulama, they have mentioned regarding that, as stated by of the ulama, that if the person also who stipulate as a condition in me given that when you're paying back that loan, I want something that will be of benefit. There's a benefit for me in paying back that loan, or benefit to be given to me in paying back that loan. Whether that benefit could be the person might stipulate that I would stay in your house for a month without any form of payment from me. So me, as a person staying in your house for a month without any payment, then that is haram. Or the person might say, I want to use your car for a month as a part of the payment of what I give you, then that's haram. So all of these manfa, any form of benefit, additional benefit, then it is, that was stipulated and agreed by either by both sides, then it is haram. Or stipulated by one side, it is haram. Then Sheikh Bassam, he mentioned that any form of loan, interest-free loan that was eventually made, then if anything is added to it or benefit, then it falls into riba. It falls into riba. So that's concerning. So any benefit that comes in addition in repaying of that loan, it becomes riba. Then he mentioned that there's exception, where the ulama mentioned that there's exception that does not fall into riba. So of those cases is that they mentioned that if from the person who's paying the loan done out of their own goodwill without it being agreed upon, or a condition that was stated, whether in written form or verbally, this was not that out of his own goodwill, that he chose out of his goodwill, that he wished to add something, give the person something additional, and after paying that debt, then I mentioned that is jaiz. That is something which is allowed. So they mentioned that, but the person that, but it, as we state, it wasn't something that was agreed upon by both parties, or stipulate as a contract, as a condition that a person have to give something additional. But the person in this case, he did out of his own goodwill, that he gave something additional after he have paid his debt, after he has repaid that debt. Then I mentioned that because there was no condition, it is something which is jaiz. They mention, as I mentioned, that it is something which is allowed. It is something which is permissible. That Ibn Muwaffaq, he state, تجوز الزيادة في القدر والصفة بلا شرط ولا مواطعة لأن النبي عليه السلام, that they mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ, that he took something and gave back something better. So he mentioned that overall meaning that the person who took out a loan and out of his own goodwill, that the person now wished to make the payment back to the lender. So the person now is giving back the lender, but he wished now to add something after paying back that loan, that they mentioned it is allowed. It is allowed. I mentioned that it was a خيركم أحسنكم قضاءً. That the hadith in the Bukhari and Muslim, that the best of you and the best of you are those who pay back their debts in a good way. Pay back their debts in a good way. So it shows regard that they mentioned. So from this, it say that it is allowed. It is allowed. That also they mentioned that adding to this masala, if the person wished to pay back his loan, but it to be paid in a different country, so it will require for the person to make that, I would say today, that transfer of payment from one country, from one city to another, that it comes with a a fee, a charge, then this also is not concluded, this is not taken as, is a man that is not, it is allowed. So there's a charge that will come in the person making that transfer from one place to another. Additional payment will be made, then that is permissible, because that goes back to the fee, whether by the way of the bank or that transfer agent. So this is something which is allowed, as that is for the transfer payment. That's for the cost of the transfer of that amount to the person, or for it to be taken to that person. So those are what is mentioned regarding this particular hadith. So of the masail that is mentioned regarding this particular hadith. So from the hadith it shows regarding that the Muslim be on guard regarding matters of riba. That the Muslim should be very mindful regarding of riba. And also it shows in general that it is allowed of taking of a loan if the person is in need, and also for a person to lend someone, to be the lender, to lend a loan, give someone a loan, but with also the person that take into account that you believe and trust that that person is able, can repay. So not for the person to be somewhat very complacent regarding these matters, that to lend someone when you know the person may not be able to pay back. And also, if that person has become known that they will borrow and take things from others and do not pay. So the person, I said, a track record of this, that a person is known, so in the community or in the society, that this person is known that they will borrow people money or borrow things from others, but they don't pay back. Or trying to find them is difficult. They'll find it in a time for them to make the payment, they cannot be found. Or when it's timed, when you try to contact them, they are not responding back. Or that person become missing. But that person so the person have a track record that he does this to many people, to a few people, then for the person not to lend such a person their money or any item, because the person have a track record of being this type of person does not return what they have borrowed. So you shouldn't lend them. But to do so in goodwill for a person who is credible and trustworthy, then that's not a problem. But for a person who is known to be not credible, trustworthy, is not dependable, not reliable, then no. Then no. So at times, it's to just kind of somewhat get just to confirm from others, is this person credible or not? So with that, inshallah ta'ala, it covers these masail that relates to, as the top of heading regarding any form of taking of loan or pawnbroking and the likes. So these type of transaction, we have covered these things and show what is permissible and that which is not permissible within these transaction. So that inshallah ta'ala, we have now come to an end regarding this particular chapter. So this chapter that Ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala mentioned, that he mentioned in this particular chapter, or this bab, that he titled Bab Al-Salam wal-Qard wal-Rahin, he mentioned 10 hadith. So I mentioned 10 hadith in this particular chapter. So that inshallah ta'ala, this will be the end of this particular chapter, and we'll be starting in the next session a new chapter that he call Bab Taflis wal-Hajr. So that will be our next discussion regarding another chapter regarding other forms of transaction. So that inshallah ta'ala will end today. وبالله تعالى توفيق وهذه إلى السبيل والآخر دوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.